get started.
And feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A box, and Kimberly will answer them at the end of her presentation.
Fantastic, ladies. Thank you. Is it over to me?
It is, and I gave you sharing access.
Okay, perfect. Well, I am hopefully going to do this correctly. Do that. Do, let's see that. Okay. Actually, it's not time to share just yet. Here we go. Okay, perfect. Are you ready? All right. Good afternoon, ladies. It's an incredible honor to be here with you. I love that you're interested in careers in business and tech, and I am blown away that you have created this conference. Huge congratulations to Jordana and Sydney for planning this entire thing. Wow. And thank you so much for having me. You know, as Beyonce says, who runs the world? Girls. And the world better watch out, because you girls, you women clearly mean business. So I love this conference. You know, when I graduated from Harvard in 2003, the most common career options were banking or consulting. No one was really talking about tech. Facebook didn't exist yet, if you can imagine that. Silicon Valley, California was super far away, and finance very much ruled the world. I didn't know what anything was. My parents were engineers and teachers, so I just followed a woman I admired that was a few years ahead of me at school into consulting because she loved her job. And that lasted 1 year, and there have been many twists and turns to where I am today, which is advising Goldman Sachs on Launch with GS, their $500 million investing strategy grounded in the belief that diverse teams drive returns. I had lots of fun and some breaks along the way, and I will share a quick snapshot. And let's see, here we go. Can you all cannot see that, can you?
You're good, we can see it.
Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
You just see a slide. Do I need to, does it work the way it is? You only see the PowerPoint, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then I want to see if I can make it present in it. Sorry, ladies, I am
all good.
Okay. I just want to. All right, we will just roll with that. Does that work? So, okay, fun breaks along the way. A year in technology consulting at American Management Systems, followed by an immediate switch into finance at Morgan Stanley when I learned about bonuses and how finance works. I took a year off and did private equity with all the cool kids at Macquarie Capital. The economy collapsed in 2008. You were all quite young, but maybe learned about it in American history or economics. So I fancied myself a food and wine consultant, though I didn't actually have any clients. So my friends intervened and gave me two options: business school or get a real job, which was impossible because the entire economy had collapsed. So off to business school at Kellogg at Northwestern. So hello to the Chicago northern suburbs. I hear a few of you all mentioned, where I did my first internship in venture capital. Having done private equity beforehand, which relies on a lot of financial engineering and staff reductions, I loved being in venture because it focused on growth, growing massive businesses, creating jobs, and changing the world. I needed operating experience to really be successful in venture. So I slept on B-school classmates' sofas for 4 months until I got a very lucky break when Uber CEO Travis Kalanick invited me to join the Uber team. I was one of the first 70 and the first Black person in headquarters, and helped grow Uber from 19 markets to over 400. Why stop at one ethic entrepreneur when you can work for two? After Uber, I joined the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to lead tech investing. Then I retired, moved to South Beach, Miami, where I now focus on my passion, which is increasing access to capital for diverse entrepreneurs. And my work in that space led to my work at Goldman now, which I love. So from that snapshot, some people think Uber is the most interesting. It is, after all, one of the highest valued startups in the world. Some people, like my mom, think the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is the most compelling. They are giving away billions. But I think advising Goldman is pretty cool. Not as the most interesting, because if I were to be honest, I'd say my favorite parts of this path were all those palm trees on the slide before, which I filled with lots of adventures across 52 countries, incredible quality time, fun, and laughter with my friends and family, and my personal investing, even a bit of nothing actually, which is helpful for reflecting and just staying true to what you want to do. For many, there we go. For many of you, that may have seemed like a lot of twists and turns. I like to think of it as a winding path forward, and sometimes the best path to where you want to go isn't necessarily a straight one. What really directed my path is impact. My guiding life principle is Luke 12:48. To whom much is given, much is required, and to whom much has been entrusted, much more will be asked. I've always been hyper aware of the tremendous blessings and opportunities I have had, especially as a Black female in America. And I feel a deep responsibility to leverage those opportunities to benefit others. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, and just as so many paved the road for me to be here with you ladies today, I am super committed to bringing others along with me. I am a firm believer that you can do more with more, and leveraging whatever platform you ladies already have and will continue to build for positive impact. For me, at the beginning of my career, that looked like joining all of the recruiting teams at Morgan Stanley and Macquarie Capital to make sure women and people of color knew of the fabulous get rich quick scheme called finance, which today might be your early stage startup. At Uber, push a button and getting a ride is cool, but for riders who are blind or have low vision, it's life-changing. And creating millions of economic opportunities for drivers was awesome, but even more so was making the app equally accessible for drivers who are deaf or hard of hearing. So if you've ever gotten that notice in the app, my team helped create it. In higher education at the Gates Foundation, I invested in technologies aiming to close the attainment gap for low-income, underrepresented minority, and first-generation college students. And today, I am excited to have such great alignment of my professional and personal interests. Having spent my career in investing in tech, I'm really passionate about increasing access to capital for underrepresented founders and investors. Diverse teams are the future, and as we all know so well, we outperform. And yet, for a lot of structural and historical reasons and bias, there's a tremendous investing gap, and thus a tremendous investing opportunity. I'm a personal investor in companies and venture capital funds. I'm a founding board member of an angel investing group, which both increases access to capital for founders and access to opportunities for members. And I advise Goldman on Launch with GS, their $500 million investing strategy for diverse teams. A note on diversity and the privilege it brings. In many of my spaces, I was and sometimes still am a first or an only. While it's been almost 2 decades since I started my career and a lot of progress has been made, many of you will still potentially be a first or an only, especially the entrepreneurs amongst you. And it's critical that you're not the last and that you bring others along with you. There has to be a first for there to be a second, and the world cannot wait for your brilliance and ideas. Which brings us back to this winding path. I hope this illustrates that no matter what you're doing in life today and aspire for your future, you can find a way to have impact. But also important about this path are the relationships that have enabled me to lean into the things that I do today and that matter most to me. It's yielded an incredible network arising from so many different experiences. I've lived in different geographies, attended different schools, worked at different companies in different sectors, from Wall Street to venture to a tech startup to philanthropy. And now, we'll circle back to Wall Street. And all of those different stops along the way have really just made for a more fruitful and diverse experience. You ladies are already killing the game just by being here today. And with this, you have such awesome opportunity to do great things. Whether you change the world, change our industries, change our cities, our neighborhoods, our families, or even just ourselves. I love this quote this question from Mary Oliver, where she says, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" Obviously, you're doing great things because you're coming to tech and business conferences. Though I also really love what Beyonce so wisely said. I don't like to gamble, but if there's one thing I'm willing to bet on, it's myself. So that's just a little snapshot on me and some of the choices I've made throughout my career and what it's looked like moving from both tech to finance, to tech to finance, and how it mingles all together. I'm really looking forward to Q&A, and feel free to ask me anything.
Yeah, so I think we'll get started. One of our first questions is, what attracted you to kind of a larger firm like Goldman Sachs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at the beginning of my career at Morgan Stanley, that was just like an easy choice. Like students, they recruited at different campuses, which I don't know what recruiting looks like today. And you know, Morgan Stanley was one of the banks, and you just see which ones you get offers at, and then if you get one, you take the one you like most. At that time, at the early stage in my career, a big firm made a lot of sense because they had so many resources for training people and teaching them everything you needed to know to be successful. And then I found finance, and specifically a big firm, to be a really great place to start a career because you learn so much that will be useful for anything else you want to do afterwards. Now, in this latest thing where I'm at Goldman Sachs, I was a personal and am a personal investor, passionate about increasing access to capital for minority founders and investors. And Goldman approached me wanting to expand their Launch with GS focus, which initially focused on women, to also focus on people of color. And as a very active personal investor in that space, I just had some unique perspectives. I did not anticipate that I would ever go back to any big, old, stodgy company, especially having been in tech and then been working, just doing my own personal investing. But Goldman Sachs has way more money than I do. So when given the opportunity to have such a large platform to work on something I was so passionate about, increasing access to capital for minorities and women and other diverse entrepreneurs, I thought it was fantastic opportunity.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And I have
Thanks so much.
a question. Someone asked, can you talk a little bit more about what you did at Uber?
Yeah, I would love to. So I joined Uber to work on product. When I joined Uber, we were in 19 markets. And so this would have been in 2012, wherever you were 8 years ago. We were in 19 markets, and Uber was only a black car service. So in the markets you live in, if you've ever seen Uber Black, that's all Uber was. Now with rideshare, there's rideshare, and rideshare has like Uber Select or other fancy things. But when it first started, just black cars. And so I was looking at extensions to Uber services. So I looked at Uber for hospitals, Uber for executive assistants, Uber for hotels, a couple of other things. And ultimately it was rolled into an Uber business product. Now, this was 2012. We didn't even have anonymized phone numbers. So if you requested an Uber in 2012, you would get a driver, and then that driver would get your actual real cell phone number, and you would get that driver's actual real cell phone number, which is crazy to imagine today, but that was very much the case back then. And the company just wasn't at a stage yet where you could actually roll out a corporate product. So then they asked me to work on Uber Miami, which was the first city we attempted to get legal. And that was quite interesting. We were in 19 markets when I started working on Miami. We were in dozens more markets before rideshare actually came to Miami. It had new products, like Lyft was created in that time frame, all sorts of stuff. So I then started working on Uber Miami, then worked on a couple of other markets around the US, opening them from more of a regulatory standpoint. And then I transitioned to lead North American stakeholder strategy, where I brought in all the different things I've been doing in these different markets. I focused on 4 main areas. So accessibility, I mentioned that earlier, but everything related to the accessibility of the Uber product, whether that was the app being accessible for people who are blind or had low vision, the driver app being accessible for drivers who are deaf or hard of hearing, wheelchair accessibility in different cities, whatever fell under that bucket. I worked on drunk driving. So what was Uber's impact on drunk driving in certain markets? the future of work. So are people making a living wage on Uber? Is this like, this is a real job? What does this look like? And then also on transportation equity. So where are there underserved people or underserved neighborhoods, which there are a lot. Chicago is a really good example where the south side of Chicago is really hard to get cabs, or if you want to go to the south side of Chicago, it's hard to get a cab driver to take you there, making the entire south side of Chicago a transportation desert. As a Black woman standing in Manhattan, sometimes just me where I am is a transportation desert if cab drivers won't pick me up. So what was Uber's work around increasing access to transportation for both people and geographies?
Thank you. Okay.
Awesome. We have a couple more. I think we have Hannah asks, did you get an internship in college? And could you talk a little bit more about that? And would you recommend it?
That is a great question, Hannah. Absolutely recommend it. You know, when I went to college, you all have way more information than I did because like there's a robust internet. When I went to college, we were mailing in applications, that sort of thing. And I'm totally not that old, but technology moves super fast. So there just wasn't as much information on what different jobs were. You literally got information at the job fairs and you would walk around like the gym or something with all these different companies with booths and you talk to them and you learn about their company and that was it. There weren't cool conferences like Women Mean Business where you got to learn all sorts of things from amazing experts. So I'm so excited about what you all are doing. I did a couple of different programs. I was in En-ROADS, if anyone's heard of that. Today there's something called MLT, Management Leadership for Tomorrow. I know there's some other like Girls Who Invest and all sorts of things to introduce women, minorities, and just students in general to more career fields. All of my internships, my first one was in real estate. Weird. And then my next two were in finance. One was in Wachovia in like regular finance type stuff. I'm from Atlanta and I don't know, it's just what it was. And then the next summer I was in Wachovia on their trading desk in North Carolina. I don't know, that's what it was. But I ultimately didn't love that. And so I studied abroad, which is kind of a rare thing to do, the fall of my senior year. So I wasn't going to be on campus for any recruiting. And so I was like, oh, well, I have this friend that's at this consulting company. She really likes it. I'll just do that too. And it was the only company I applied to, and it was the one that I got. I think internships are a great way to explore different industries, one, and then two, to like get into the door, depending on the industry you want to be in. A lot of them hire from their intern pool, so it can be a really great way to, get an edge on getting one of those opportunities. And
Awesome. Last,
I would say I've seen some people doing multiple internships in one summer, which was like totally not a thing when I was in school. But I've seen people like, oh, I'm going to do 6 weeks here and then 6 weeks here, and it's super creative. So I love that, and good luck.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. That was really helpful for Hannah, I'm sure. Just following up on that, someone else asked, what did you study at Harvard and kind of what drew you to that major?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at Harvard, I studied economics and French. I went to Harvard thinking I was going to do applied physics. Because AP physics was my favorite subject in high school. I'm so smart. Just go with it. I don't know why I liked it so much, but in my head, I really did. So when I majored in college, computer science is one of the first courses you take in applied physics at Harvard. So I started computer science, loved it, and was like, oh, I'm going to do computer science instead. Forget applied physics, I'm doing computer science. Then we had this add drop deadline. I don't know if once you are into college, those of you already there, you have it or maybe will have it. And that 5-week mark, I was like, I don't know, do I really want to do this computer science thing? Not that awesome. For me, it was not that awesome for me. So I dropped out of it. We were learning like C. This was a long time ago. We were learning C. I don't know if people even learn that anymore. And economics is like the default major at Harvard for people who don't want to do anything else. It's the closest to a business major we have. I went on business or finance. And so if you kind of can't figure it out, you end up in economics. And it ended up being, it's a fine choice.
Thank you. And then what made you sure that you wanted to work in finance? Like what indication was it? Was it in your undergrad, like working in the workforce?
That's an excellent question. I will be very honest. I did it for the money. So when I came out of school, I mentioned I went into consulting for a year. And I don't know how familiar you are with this. No one told me this when I was in college. But if you, in some of these industries, in some of these companies, it's company specific, you get a bonus every year. And I was just blown away. So a year out of college, all my friends in finance were getting these bonus checks, and they were bigger than their salaries. And I was like, so they just gave you an extra check that's more than you made the whole year, and they call this a bonus. And, you know, I turned around, asked my consulting colleagues, I was like, do we get these bonus things? And they said no. And I called Harvard's Office of Career Services, because we had this back then, and I was like, guys, I've made a mistake. I thought I was passionate about consulting, but really I'm passionate about finance. And I got into a couple of analyst recruiting interview things and ended up at Morgan Stanley. It was totally financial. My view was, if I am working for someone else, and you're working crazy hours at a lot of these places, if I'm working for someone else and working this hard, I want to make the most money possible. And that's why I switched to finance. I think it's a little bit different today, because back when I graduated from school, finance was one of the main areas where you could really do something lucrative. Today, like the startup route is super interesting. The big tech companies are super interesting. There's just a lot of different avenues to make a lot of, I call it get rich quick.
Super cool. We have one from Veronica. She asks, as a minority young woman heading a nonprofit, I struggle with people taking me seriously and understanding my authority. Do you have any tips?
Ooh, Veronica, that's a tough space. And whether you are running a nonprofit or you have started some amazing tech startup, it is really difficult. It can be really difficult for both women and minorities with some of the different just entrenched biases that have existed in our nation forever and will continue to exist for a very long time. But maybe your generation will like kind of flesh it out. Let's see, I think excellence is one of the most important things, especially as a woman and as a person of color. You've heard before, like you have to give 110% or you have to give 200% just to get, you know, the same credit. And unfortunately, that is still very much the case in a lot of spaces. But excellence in execution in everything you do becomes so critical. Like they're never giving anyone a reason to doubt what you're doing, doubt your word, doubt your knowledge, that sort of thing. So I would say one, excellence. I would say two, and this is something that, you know, especially as you get older in your career, you really appreciate the need to use. Sometimes you just need a proxy. As an investor in startups, and I do like to, my portfolio is about 50-50 minority and women founded startups and other, whoever the other may be. You know, one of the things that some of the founders have to do is like actually have a proxy. Sometimes you need like a male or, and this is so awful to say, sometimes you just need someone else that has better access. As in my investing hat, when I am at Silicon Valley events, I'm one of the only Black women in the room, and people just can't imagine that I would be someone worthy for them to talk to. I would go with like one of my white male VC friends, and I would have him introduce me around because I actually needed this event and this time to be productive for me. And so sometimes I would just take an approach of like whatever it takes to get it done. And that comes across that, and this can be super controversial, especially for younger people, and we can totally debate and discuss it. But there's that whole notion until you own it or run it, you play by the rules people do. And I'm more of a whatever it takes person. So I have naturally curly hair, but when I was in San Francisco doing my UGA, I wore my curly hair. When I went over to the East Coast, I straightened it. I don't really care what my hair looks like, but what I do care about is getting whatever deal I'm working on done. I just say that.
Thank you. Okay, another question from Daniela. What is your vision for the next 5 to 10 years of your career?
Ooh, I told you I went to Miami and was semi-retired. I would really like to stay. I really did think I was retired, but then I had this opportunity at Goldman, and I've been advising them for like a year and a half or so, and it has been a lot of work. It has totally pulled me out of retirement. So, okay, you're not retired anymore, it's fine. I actually think what I want to do next is growth equity. I started my career in private equity at Macquarie Capital. After business school, I did more venture stuff. So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation at Tech Investing, venture stuff at Goldman, my own personal early stage investing. I think next I want to invest right in the middle of that at the growth equity stage. And that means growth equity, you're writing more like $25 to $50 million checks into a company that's maybe in series like DEF. So it's past the early stage venture space and into the, we've got revenues, we're growing, we have great product market fit, we're going to be an amazing company, but we just need a large infusion of cash to really get the next level. I think that's what I would like to do next.
And thank you. And just a follow-up for that, how has coronavirus changed what you do now? And like, how do you see like that shaping your future?
So there have been tremendous impacts to everything, everyone from coronavirus. And definitely, a lot of people, a lot of families have been impacted by it. I think from a personal standpoint for me, from a standpoint of things being virtual, I love the virtual aspect of it so much. I get to be here today with you, Women Mean Business, and you all are all over the world. And it is the most amazing thing ever. Earlier this week, I spoke in a class at Harvard Business School. Last week, I spoke to a group of Howard University entrepreneurs and Harvard alumni entrepreneurs. And then I did like all sorts of crazy stuff that back in the day, you really like, there would have been things in person, it would have been panels in person, the things you had to fly to, maybe you couldn't. I am right now in my childhood home in Roswell, Georgia, helping my parents move out of it. And I get to do this conference with you, sitting on the floor against the wall because there's no furniture in the house, which just would have been impossible beforehand. I like that. I think it creates more access, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you want to, say, raise capital. And a lot of times that's done by flying to conferences and meeting people and this and that. And it can make it difficult for people that maybe don't have the same access to friends and family rounds or that sort of thing. It can make it difficult for them to access those spaces. So I do think it on the one hand, it's a little bit of an equalizer in people being able to access, say, job talent or funding or whatever it may be. On the other hand, I think it is difficult for people to create new relationships in this environment. So if you didn't already have relationships, I think it's going to be really tricky to build some right now. But for me, I am really enjoying the productivity and efficiency that I get from having just like 10 seconds to enter a new Zoom number between meetings.
Great, yeah. And I know you might have mentioned this earlier, but Victoria kind of asked, how do you go about networking and what are some of the best ways to do that? And have you faced any challenges?
That's a great question. Thank you, Victoria via Jordana. And I included it in my remarks. I wanted to touch on that. When I was asked on one of the podcasts I did, the woman asked what was my superpower. And I told her my superpower was my ability to build a network. That's not how I phrased it. But the idea being just knowing so many people from so many different places has been wildly helpful. This advising Goldman on this investing strategy, I am so good at it. The reason I'm so good at it is because I worked in 800 cajillion places, companies, geographies, schools, and it's just been so helpful. From talking to different entrepreneurs to investors, there's always something relevant from what I did at Uber, what I did at the Gates Foundation, being in finance in the day, someone I knew when I lived in Chicago or lived in New York or lived in San Francisco. Now I live in Miami. It's slightly less relevant to, the broader business world, but very awesome and a new emerging, more of like an emerging tech scene, which makes it very exciting to be there at this time. So I would say being in a lot of different places, having great energy, being memorable has been really helpful. So even if I don't remember having met someone, they remember having met me. And that has proved super valuable. And See, I am not the best network builder. Mine is more organic, but what I have seen other people do that work really well is just people with great follow-up. No one forgets like that person that can respond instantly to a text or to an email or to a LinkedIn request, which Jordana knows actually like real time. This is not anywhere near is my biggest challenge area of my life. There's this quote, fortune is in the follow-up. And I think I could be like 10 times wealthier if I actually, and maybe even like, you know, have a family if I actually manage to reply to people in a timely manner. Those are a lot of different things, but I would say for networking, just really good follow-up. And yeah.
Great, that's super helpful. We have one from Favor. They ask,
I would combine it with the
why
do you think Harvard chose you, and what majors would you say should not apply to Harvard? Like what schools, I'm guessing, because they're not really strong or good there. So, and what programs do you recommend? And then what majors would you say to apply to Harvard? Yeah.
You know, I went to Harvard 2 decades ago. So whatever I say may not be as relevant today, Favor, but I would, let's see, I think when I applied to school, and you guys will hear this as you start doing your college interviews, those of you that, and you heard them if you've done them already, when the people interviewing are like, oh, I would never get in today, like you guys are just so much more talented than I was, blah, blah, blah. So I heard that a ton during my interviews, and I totally get it because each generation just ups the bar. I mean, you are creating your own conferences, right? So, I mean, you can even go to, I didn't know what conferences were in high school. I was like, I don't know, in the band, or I was just doing random stuff. So I think I had a diversity of activities. You know, I was student body president and class president a bunch of years. Excellent grades, obviously. And that's probably just like an interesting person. I'm from Georgia. I think that helps. Roswell, Georgia is not a whole bunch of people from Roswell, Georgia applying to Harvard. So, you know, it's not like I was coming from New York or Cambridge or Chicago. So that was probably helpful too. And in terms of majors or choosing a school for your major, again, remember, I can be controversial, and I say the same thing about business school too. You go to the best school that you can get into. Harvard actually wasn't my personal first choice. I thought I was going to MIT because of the whole physics thing. And I wanted to do material science and engineering at MIT. And I sent in my acceptance thing. I did the visit there. And I made friends there that I still have today. Just loved it. But then I visited Stanford, and I had never been to California before. And I thought California and Stanford were the most beautiful places I had ever seen. And I met a whole bunch of other cool students at Hit Minute Student Weekend. And we took pictures and trees and this and that. I am the only one in these pictures that did not actually go to Stanford. And my parents ultimately made me go to Harvard. And that is because they are adults, and I was like a 16-year-old trying to make decisions that would impact the rest of my life. And so one thing when I do talk to younger people, going to Harvard has been the single most valuable thing I have done for my entire career, throughout my career. Like any of my general professional things, my graduate degrees, like nothing else has been as helpful as that, especially as a woman and especially as a person of color, because it does give you some sort of like credibility or some sort of entree into a room. That's been helpful. So with that, I would say whatever school, like as you're making your decision, go to the best school that you can. And I will also add the value of going to college has changed. You know, I spent some time at the Gates Foundation on the higher education team, and it's not the same as it was before. So just be really thoughtful about, you know, making sure you are getting the value out of it that it costs. College is so expensive. God.
For sure. So could you kind of walk us through, someone asked, walk us through a day at Launch with GS, like kind of what a day in the life looks like?
I would love to. First and foremost, Launch with GS, fabulous, fabulous team of actually a lot of ladies, which, as you can imagine, just makes it super awesome, super, super dope. So on any given day, you will start the day with a couple of different calls with either entrepreneurs or investors. that typically have diverse backgrounds or are investing in entrepreneurs or investors with diverse backgrounds. So that you might have a call with a female fund manager. So there'll be a female venture capitalist that has $150 million venture capital fund investing in healthcare, for example, and talk to her just about her fund strategy and how she's thinking about it. Then you might talk to an entrepreneur that's, an early stage entrepreneur. Maybe they've raised their Series A and they would like to get to know Goldman as they're thinking about their Series B. So we meet with them and have a lovely virtual conversation just to learn more about their business. And then we do some ecosystem work where you think about, all right, where should, is there a speaker series that we can do that would be really helpful? At the start of the coronavirus, we did some speaker series on the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, lending program that the government did, or, and just other topics that would be really useful for the ecosystem. And then you spend some time with the team. My favorite are our team calls, especially because we're on Zoom. They get to see everyone, and they're amazing. And then there's so much. It's one of the most amazing teams I've ever worked with, and the diversity of activities they do is incredible. That's just a snapshot, talking to investors, talking to entrepreneurs, building programs. We actually, this took up a huge part of our summer. We had a Black and Latinx entrepreneur cohort where we had over 400 entrepreneurs applied. We selected 14 and did an 8-week super intensive summer session with them where they were each paired with Goldman Sachs partners, Goldman Sachs wealth advisor, Goldman Sachs investor. And then we had a bunch of different sessions that were tailored just for them on their different sectors and other areas of expertise. And so if you asked during that week, it was every day we had lots of different meetings with each entrepreneur and everyone across Goldman, all driving towards accelerating their growth.
Right. And thank you. And then so our last question from Anonymous, what advice would you have for someone who is interested in business, finance, and economics?
That is awesome. And I would say keep it going. The nice thing about all those areas, business, finance, and economics, is that they are relevant to absolutely every career, right? So whether you are, this is STEM as well. So whatever you are doing in STEM, like anything, everyone in STEM, there's a business, a finance, economics component. Or if you just only want to do the finance piece, like that's in its entirety as well. I think starting out, it's really good to go somewhere where you can learn a lot. And that would be those bigger institutions. You can learn a lot anywhere. So 2 different kind of paths. The bigger institutions where they have these really like entrenched training programs where, today if I'm looking to hire someone, I'm like, I know that someone started their career at Morgan Stanley. I started my career at Morgan Stanley. It was like super, super intense training. They know how to build a financial model and they can run with this. Same with some of the consulting firms. I think tech may be like that, I'm not sure. So I would say definitely take that opportunity to go somewhere where you can learn a lot across a broad number of things. And then the other path, is more of a new, smaller firm where you learn a lot because you are doing so much more and you're not confined to, oh no, this is an analyst responsibility. Oh no, these are social responsibilities. Oh, only VPs do this. So I think there's this great benefit in both.